Mohamed Mergoum, he's our wheat breeder at NDSU.
Welcome to the spring wheat stop, and let me ask you a question. Who grows wheat? Wonderful. Who does not grow wheat? And what it takes to make you grow wheat? What's the problem?
Profitability.
I'm sorry?
Land's not good enough for beans or corn.
Okay, good. And it comes to money, right? So what it takes to wheat to compete against corn? Yield. So variety, we need a variety, good variety. But we need help for that variety. Two kind of helps. First, the environment, okay? We need to have a good environment. The second is we need management. I'm gonna focus a little bit on management because even though you may have a better variety, a good variety, if you don't manage it, it's not gonna give you a good product. The other thing is, remember that wheat is grown for one purpose in North Dakota, is quality. Because we export 50% of wheat and the other 50% is used for improving the other low quality wheat. So basically we need quality. It's not like other crops. That's the challenge we have as wheat scientists, is we have to increase yield so we can compete with corn. At the same time, we do not have to lose, we cannot have lose the quality. Also, remember that when you are a buyer anywhere in the world, and we send our wheat around the world, it's best quality ever they have, besides probably some Canadian wheat. They don't care how much that wheat yield. They only care about the quality. If it's a 20 bushel or 120 bushel, that's not their problem. So the quality is very important. And when you put high quality, obviously it has to take energy from the plant somewhere else, and most of the time is yield. Having said that, our job as scientists is to improve both yield and quality. So which leads me to talk about the varieties that have been released recently, as well as the new ones coming in the pipeline. At the moment, the most grown variety in the state is Barlow, followed by Glen, and you have Soren and Fowler and Prosper. These are the top 5 varieties, and they occupy more than close to 60% of the rest is divided by small other varieties. And here in this part of the state, you have still Glen and Barlow are number 1, which is more or less coincide with the statistics of the state. I'm glad Barlow is still very good variety for this region, because we released it for this part of the state, and the name was reflected for a small town close to here. So Barlow should be very good. When I proposed the name, by the way, I got grilled by the committee. They say, why you want to give Barlow? You're setting the bar very low. So I said, well, just maybe that's an underdog. It will do well. Anyway, so Barlow is number 1. Why? Because it has that quality balance, and it has better yield than Glen. Always about 5 bushel, 5 bushel than Glen. So that's why it took over Glen, and it's number 1 now in the state, and it will stay for a while. The other 2 varieties that are really competing from our program with Barlow and Glen is Prosper and Fowler. Fowler was released quite a while ago, but Prosper was the last one, and you can see it here. These 2 varieties are the first varieties that were released by NDSU with high yield. As a matter of fact, I have struggled with the committee to release it, because they say, well, you are lowering that bar for quality, and we don't want to lose that market. But I was convinced that these 2 varieties, they have high yield, but they didn't compromise the yield, the quality. Except if you don't manage them very well. The first 2 years, Fowler was out there, and most of the growers did not fertilize adequately for 15, almost 20 bushel more. So when you don't have that much, you will have lower protein. So genetically, the genetic makeup of Fowler and Prosper, actually it's more efficient than even other varieties like Glen. If you multiply the percentage of fodder of protein by acre, and you see fodder and Prosper make more protein than other varieties in terms of total protein. Fodder and Prosper are very high yield, relatively lower protein, but the quality of protein, which is the glutenin and gliadin and all that component which make the strength of gluten, was not affected. You still make excellent bread with both varieties. So these two varieties will be here for a while, particularly in eastern North Dakota, central as well as Minnesota. As a matter of fact, both varieties, Prosper is number 1 and Fodder number 2 in Minnesota. The new releases, NDSU released Elgin this 2013. Elgin is a combination of Fowler and, let's say, Glen. It has better quality than Fowler and close to Glen. And yield-wise, it's always very close to Fowler or Prosper, about 2 to 5 bushel. So we were successful to bring yield again higher than Barlow, about 5 bushel, but also maintaining the quality. As a matter of fact, the Wheat Quality Council now is thinking to change the quality test from Glen, because Glen is phasing out, to Elgin. So that's testified that Elgin quality is excellent. And also, most important, the yield is higher. Prior to that, we released Velva. Velva is, as the name says, it's very adapted to the Minot region and so on. So it is a variety that's higher yield than both Glen and Barlow, less than Fowler, O'Cor, and Prosper. It's almost a bushel or 2 less than Elgin. So it's not competing also well with Elgin. And protein is average, not very high as Glen and Barlow. In wheat, we are fortunate that we have many breeding programs operating in this area. And you have public breeding programs, Minnesota, South Dakota, and Montana, as well as private sector, particularly Syngenta, which is AgriPro, as well as other Monsanto, which bought Westbred, and you have new companies like Lima Grain, Per Crop Science. We were lacking of investment in the past. There was only public sector operating the breeding, but now we have a lot of other competitors, which will bring a lot of science as well as challenges. You know, we will start to talk very soon about GM wheat and so on, and that's something that we have to deal with. And hopefully by then the market changed its mind and accept that. But that's the future. We need to have those investment and those trades in wheat to close the gap between corn, soybean, and wheat. This breeding program releases every year several varieties, and behind me, Prevail is from South Dakota. That's the latest variety that they released. It's a variety that has advantages and disadvantages as well. If you think about 2 varieties released 2 years ago, Advance and Forefront. Advance is very high yield, lower protein. Forefront, relatively low yield, but higher protein. Prevail is somehow in between. It has higher yield than Forefront, close to Advance, but better protein than Advance. So somehow, same thing we did with Elgin when you compare it to Glen and Prosper and Fowler. Minnesota, I keep talking about public. Minnesota released Linker. In general, variety from Minnesota are high yield, average quality to low quality. Why? Because traditional, we were exporting wheat to Europe, Europe, North Europe, basically England and so on, and they don't want high, strong gluten. So Melo type was their type of export. Minnesota was the ideal. But this year, the first time that they released a variety with high protein, very close to Barlow and Glen. So you can expect with high protein, obviously the quality, the yield is lower than most of their varieties. I talked about Syngenta. Syngenta released around 2 years ago, and this year they released Ingmar. I have no data on both Ingmar and Iguazu. This is from Lima grade because they are first year in our trial. So next year maybe we'll have some data. But for Rowan, it's a very high yield. Fortunately, the protein is lower. Soren is the variety that has been released a few years ago, and it's very popular in the state. And it's number 3rd in the state and also here in the part of the state. So these are varieties that are released in recently